What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining for another edition of Falcos Facts. I got a very special guest with me, a very good friend of mine, Marcus Lamar from the Mark My Words podcast. Marcus, how we doing, bro?
What's going on, bro? Having me.
So we got a packed show today. We got some NFL to talk about, the wild card weekend, and we got a little bit of NBA to wrap up the show. But Marcus and myself have been going back and forth about a lot of games this weekend. And one of the big ones we went against was the Browns game and the Steelers game. Marcus referred to me as Mr. Cleveland Brown. He thought I was ridiculous for telling him that the Cleveland Browns were going to win this game. As usual, I am right, he is wrong. So I will give you the opportunity to apologize like you should or defend yourself for an awful take, which you've had a lot of those in the past. So I'll give you the floor to open up. What are your thoughts on the game Sunday night?
Well, thanks for having me, Brandon. I see you waste no time jumping on me out of the gates. I respect that and I appreciate that. But here's what I said, okay? I want to give credit to the Cleveland Browns. They played a phenomenal game. They were all over Pittsburgh from the start. My thinking heading into the game was that this was Cleveland's first playoff game in a while, right? So I thought that the experience of Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger would rise to the occasion. I was wrong. The warning signs for what happened Sunday night have been there for the last 6 weeks as it pertains to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They can't run the football. Ben Roethlisberger is, as to steal Brandon's quote, is a 10-man in the pocket. So he has no mobility. So you don't have to worry about him escaping the pocket. On top of that, Juju Smith-Schuster is not a number one wide receiver. He lacks the maturity to be one, obviously. And then on secondly, he doesn't lack the skill set to be a number one wide receiver. So with that being said, Cleveland played well. They've been doing what they've been doing all season, which is running the ball effectively. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are the best running back duo in the NFL. They can hurt you on the ground. They can also hurt you out of the backfield, catching passes. And they earned their spot to play Kansas City next week. Now, I obviously think that they'll lose to the Chiefs. Their season comes to an end next weekend. But are they a live threat against Kansas City? No, they're not a live threat against Kansas City. So I don't want you, Brandon, and anybody out there watching the show to think that the Cleveland Browns are about to make noise these NFL playoffs, because they're not going to. They beat a sorry Pittsburgh team. That's all there is to it. I will not be apologizing to Brandon Falco on his show, so you can pretty much kiss that idea out the window. With that being said, I do want to congratulate the Cleveland Browns. Whoop-de-doo, you guys got a playoff win. Your season ends next week. You just got an extra week of game checks.
So the Cleveland Browns won their first playoff game since probably before the bubonic plague pandemic, if anyone remembers when that was. Probably like 1100 BC or whatever the hell that was. I thought it was very easy to predict this game because I believe momentum is a thing in sports, especially in the NFL and not the NBA, definitely not the NBA, NHL and MLB. NBA is a league where usually the best team is going to win. As long as they're healthy going to the playoffs, they will figure it out. Teams could literally flip a switch. And when you're more talented and you're more superior than another team, you're going to handle business 9 out of 10 times. I believe a sport like football, baseball, and hockey is completely different. Momentum is real, and that's what you need entering the postseason. I've been saying all year long, whoever is going to be hot entering the postseason are going to be the teams that are dangerous. Not necessarily the most talented team or the team with the best quarterback or something amongst those lines. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I posted on my Facebook page. When they were 11-0, I said that this Pittsburgh Steelers team does not have the same feel as they did when the Brady Patriots had those long stretches of undefeated. Like, you felt like it was Tom Brady, it was the Patriots, and everybody else. They were the team to beat. When Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts had long stretches of being undefeated, it's like, okay, it's them and everybody else. You never felt that with the Steelers. And then, not surprisingly, they lost the 4 out of their last 5 games. Their running game could not have been any worse. I don't think you could have drawn up a worse running game plan when they're getting about 30 yards as a team. Yes, 33-0 a game. Right then and there, it's easy for a defensive coordinator to game plan. A lot of people tried to think that the Browns not having their head coach was going to play a huge factor in this game. But defensively, it just seems like a simple game plan when you don't have to worry about anything in the run game because James Conner is not who we think it is. Their offensive line can't block. And then Ben Roethlisberger, as I famously say, he's as mobile as the Tin Man in the pocket. He doesn't drop back at all because he can't move, and that's why he has a lot of passes batted down. And then with that being said, the Browns have some momentum. They've been playing well towards the end of the season outside of that Jets game, which somehow they found a way to lose. And then a division rival game, there's always that extra spice in it and always something between the two teams, even though it's not necessarily a rivalry, as some may say, because of the talent difference over the years. But when you're playing a team in your division, there's just something about it that makes that game tighter, which is ultimately why the Cleveland Browns won this game and won their first playoff game since, I said before, the bubonic plague pandemic.
Look, I'll be honest. This game was not a good matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cleveland Browns do what the Pittsburgh Steelers don't do really well, and that's run the football, right? So we know that Pittsburgh has no running game. And when the first play of the game, the center snaps the ball and it goes over the quarterback's head. It was eerily reminiscent of what happened in the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks and Peyton Manning. Straight out the gate, you're already down 7-0. And you turn the ball over. And if you look at James Conner and Ben Roethlisberger's body language on that fumble or on that touchdown by Cleveland, they let you know there in that moment, they had no chance of winning that football game. Before I could blink, I was doing laundry and texting you simultaneously. Before I could blink, the Pittsburgh Steelers was down 28-0. Anytime you spot a team 28 points in the playoffs, with the exception of the Atlanta Falcons, obviously, you're not winning that football game. Okay, you're not winning that football game. I think it's important to put into perspective what just happened. The Pittsburgh Steelers just let the Cleveland Browns walk into their building in a home playoff game and put up 48 points. That's almost a 50 burger. That's almost a 50 burger. It's the most points ever allowed by the Pittsburgh Steelers in their franchise's history in the postseason. I think what's even more important to highlight is what do the Pittsburgh Steelers do moving forward? All of the noise about, oh, should Mike Tomlin be fired? He doesn't have the team ready to go. They're not really well coached up. They always have these epic letdowns in the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Steelers organization has taught us that their nature is not to fire head coaches. That's why they've had 3 head coaches in their entire franchise's history. So Mike Tomlin's job, for the most part, I believe, is pretty safe. But what about the future of the team? Ben Roethlisberger is not aging. He's aged. Okay, we're past the point of him aging. He has aged. You still owe him money for, I believe, 1 more season. But as it currently stands, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the 4th best quarterback in that division. I damn sure as hell wouldn't take Ben over Lamar. I damn sure as hell wouldn't take him over Joe Burrow, despite the fact that his offensive line is atrocious. And I wouldn't take him over Baker Mayfield, who I don't love, and neither does Brandon. You're not winning a division, let alone a playoff game or a Super Bowl, if you have the 4th best quarterback in the division. So this offseason, whether it be through the draft or whether it be through free agency, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to address their quarterback situation moving forward, or this team has no chance moving forward.
Hold that thought about the Steelers moving on from Ben Roethlisberger, because we will touch on that later in the show. But I think the thing about this Steelers team, why I'm so big on momentum and struggling entering the postseason, not necessarily that you're injured, but when you're losing games and the Steelers had Super Bowl expectations all year long that they were the last remaining team undefeated, and they were 11-0 at one point. That is adding pressure. People tried to say that, oh, I had a guest on last week that said, oh, well, I have inside sources about the Steelers that they are so confident and they're not worried about anything. They're going to be playing great ball and they're going to be just fine. That's not the way it works. Obviously, that people are going to come and say that they feel confident, because then if you're going to tell somebody that you're not confident and you're nervous and you feel pressure, you just gave the other team a competitive advantage just like that, and you basically lost the battle before it even started. When you're losing games before the postseason begins, all that's doing is putting you in a bigger hole, and it's added pressure. Not only did they have Super Bowl aspirations, for Ben Roethlisberger's case, again, like you just addressed, this may be his last year in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. It may be one of the last years of his final career. So all this added was just added pressure that they were struggling. That's why I was so confident, so sure that the Browns are going to win this game. And what do you know? I was right, like usual, because everything that comes out of my mouth is straight excellence. But I'll leave it to you. One more thought.
Well, don't lie to your viewers. We know that's not true. Secondly, you had on a guest last week, as you just astutely pointed to, but you don't have on the guest, okay? You have the guest this week, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to drive ratings. I'm here to help boost your show. I appreciate you for having me. But no, on a serious note, the Cleveland Browns moving forward have a really good situation on their hand, because I still believe that there is a trade market for Odell Beckham Jr., who is probably going to get moved in the offseason. I'm going to say this. His better years are behind him. Okay, we've seen the very best of Odell Beckham Jr. He has peaked, and the injury this season does not certainly help his case moving forward. But there is going to be a market for him. I don't know what it will look like, but they'll be able to either acquire some draft picks or some really good players, and they'll be able to fortify their roster. I still don't think Baker Mayfield is what you would consider to be a franchise quarterback. I think in the NFL, we have to understand there's a difference between franchise quarterbacks and starting quarterbacks. Franchise quarterbacks are guys you can give the key to your organization to for 10 to 15 years and say, take me there. All right. There's a handful of them in the league. You have Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady in his prime. DeShaun Watson appears to be that, even though he hasn't had the support that he's needed in Houston. Baker Mayfield is not that. In fact, Baker Mayfield is probably like a tier 3, maybe even tier 4 level quarterback. So what he's proven is that if you surround him with pieces on offense, the Cleveland Browns have one of the best offensive lines in the league, he can have some success. He's limited his turnovers because they've committed to running the football. Last year, they didn't do that. Baker Mayfield was a turnover machine. He had all types of turnovers. It was interceptions, apple turnovers, blueberry turnovers. He could have opened up a bakery, okay? But since then, he has since cut down on those turnovers. He only had 8 interceptions in 16 games this year, and it's directly attributed to the fact that Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb have given him a premium in the backfield, running the football and catching passes out of the backfield. So Cleveland, the future appears to be bright, but again, don't let this postseason conflate what you actually really are. You're a good team with a good foundation and an identity. A lot of times in the NFL, teams don't have an identity, and you see it rear its ugly head. That doesn't appear to be the case with the Cleveland Browns.
That I actually do totally agree with. I've been very critical of Baker Mayfield. I've always said I've not been a huge fan of him. I was out of college. I wanted my New York Jets to draft him with the 3rd overall pick if he came there, and obviously that didn't happen. But with that being said, I do agree that Baker Mayfield is a product of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. I'm totally a believer of that. People say that quarterbacks can't be a product of another guy on their team, or they can't be a product of their coaches, but that is utterly ridiculous if you're going to ask me. They try to say that a wide receiver could be that, a running back could be that, but no. I believe 2 quarterbacks are a product of their running backs that they have on their team. Baker is a product of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Ryan Tannehill is a product of Derrick Henry. I'm totally believing that, which we'll touch on that game later in the show, which I will address. But speaking of Baker Mayfield, again, like you said, they always wanted to run the ball all year long, which they have the best running back duo in the league by a wide margin. That's why Baker's numbers tend to be better. They have a great offensive line. They drafted an offensive tackle in the 1st round, I believe. They traded for Austin Hooper, who's still proven to be a pretty good tight end. Jarvis Landry is a great wide receiver. Is he a number 1? That's up for debate. But the fact that you have that running back duo, that 2-headed monster in the backfield, it opens up everything for him. So the inconsistency I see from him is why I tend to think he's a bust. I've called him a bust. I'm not going to lie. That hasn't aged too well. If we look at this season, if they lost week 17 against the Steelers, I would have said the Browns got to move on from him. I said they got to move on. It's over. His time is done. He's had too much around him not to be successful. I've said with the Browns giving Baker this much talent, this early in his career, there is no reason why he's not in the MVP conversation. That's why I call him a bust. Being the number 1 overall pick in the draft, having this much talent around you, your 3rd year in the league, there's 0 excuses why you are not in the MVP conversation. Yes, that is the expectations when you are a number 1 pick in the draft and you have talent around him. The supporting cast is not the excuse. You got rid of Freddie Kitchens, so that's not an excuse anymore. You have everything around you. That's why I always said the Browns are literally and figuratively the wild card team of this playoffs, because I think it's a lot on his shoulders, which I'm not a big believer of saying that a team is really just based around your quarterbacks. I believe it's everything else, but that team is really what Baker Mayfield's going to give you, because sometimes he looks like a top 10 quarterback and other weeks he could look like a bottom 3 quarterback. So yeah, he is basically the literally and figuratively the wild card of these playoffs, if you're going to ask me. I'll give it to you one more time before we move on.
I think you need to double down on your initial commentary on Baker. Considering where he was drafted, which was number 1 overall, there's a certain expectation that accompanies that. Now, does every number 1 overall draft pick or every 1st round draft pick hit regardless of position? No, we all know that, right? You can find gems in other rounds of the NFL draft. But considering his collegiate career and then adding that to the fact that he was drafted number 1 overall, it's safe to say that he is underachieved. When you're drafted number 1 overall, or when you're considered a franchise quarterback, you're a carrier of people. You don't get carried by people. Baker Mayfield is being carried by his running game. It is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's something wrong with it when you were drafted number 1 overall. That is a problem, all right? Part of what makes an elite quarterback elite is the fact that they're able to carry those around them, despite circumstances maybe not being ideal, meaning you might not have a running game. Your offensive line might be a disaster. Your defense might be atrocious, right? We've seen people like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and DeShaun Watson rise to the occasion by willing their team to the playoffs through their performance. Baker Mayfield is a passenger. He's not driving the Cleveland Browns car, and there's nothing wrong with that. Moving forward, could that dynamic change? Possibly. Like, he has certain attributes where he could be an elite quarterback, but by and large, nothing about him is changing. He's not growing any taller. His arm is not incredible. He doesn't have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes' arm talent, and he's not exactly the most mobile like a Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson. So his attributes are what they are, but that doesn't mean he can't play well. He's played well this season. I hope that he continues it. I want to root for the guy. It's just based on where he was drafted, he's underachieved up until this point. But who knows? Maybe they'll make some noise next week against Kansas City, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I totally agree about Baker Mayfield, but I want to address a new topic that we disagreed about, and obviously I came out right, which is usual. The Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. I told you that the Rams were going to win this game. You disagree that the Seattle was because you are really big on those vanilla takes. You love to pick all favorites, which is very boring, and you were wrong as usual. The Rams, I said, were going to win this game because I'm a believer defense wins championships. I did not trust the Seahawks defense, which they looked really poor in the first half of that game, which ultimately why they lost that game. But Russell Wilson probably played his worst career playoff game. So what are your thoughts on your second L of the week?
Well, let me just shoot your initial comment down. First of all, defense does not win championships. Championships meaning plural, okay? Let's go back in time. The Denver Broncos featuring the no-fly zone, right? How many championships did they win? They made one. Super Bowl. They made it to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. The first time they made it, they weren't even a defensive-minded football team. They were predicated on their offense, and they got shut down by a defensive-minded football team in the Legion of Boom.
Oh!
Hold on. I'm getting back to my point. But the second time the Legion of Boom went to the Super Bowl, did they win? No. So again, we have 2 teams in recent memory, whether it's the Denver Broncos, defense only winning 1 championship. The Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom, only winning 1 championship. In the early 2000s, as great as the Ravens defense was, how many championships did they win?
Zip it. Hold on. I need to cut you off right here. Stop it. So hold on. So we'll go back to 2013. The offensive-driven MVP Peyton Manning threw for over 50 touchdowns, which is the NFL record as we stand today. They got shut down by the Legion of Boom, a defense. I mean, the Broncos were disgusting in every aspect of that game.
Tell the people what happened next year.
How did they win that game? What was the final play of that game? I'll wait, Mr. Tom Brady.
Tell them what happened last year.
Last year in what? The Super Bowl?
Excuse me. Tell them what happened after they won the Super Bowl.
Malcolm Butler saved Tom Brady's bacon. Not surprised.
Okay, first of all, you don't even believe that take because if you remember that game, the Seahawks were winning by 14 points in the fourth quarter. My point is
10.
10 points. My point is, before I get to your initial point, which was, defense wins championships, the Los Angeles Rams have a really good defense. But I guarantee you're not picking them to win the Super Bowl this year. And there's a reason. It's because offensively they are challenged, right? All of the teams that made the playoffs, most of them happen to be, of the 14 teams that made the playoffs, I think 10 of them happen to be top 10 either offensively or defensively, like some combination of that. So we get it. The reason I picked the Seattle Seahawks is because if you look at Russell Wilson's track record, which I believe he's now 9-6 in the postseason, the dude doesn't lose at home in the postseason. It's very seldom he loses at home. In fact, he typically loses on the road. He lost in the Super Bowl, which is a neutral site location. He lost on the road, I believe, at Carolina, at Atlanta, at Dallas. So most of his L's in the postseason come on the road. So that was why I picked the Seattle Seahawks to win, in addition to the fact that there was wide concern about whether or not Jared Goff would even start the game. And I guarantee you, outside of this weekend, because you probably looked at the stat sheet, you didn't even know the Rams' backup quarterback. So don't give me that, you just picked the Seahawks because it was a vanilla take because they were favored. No, I picked the Seahawks because they were playing at home. They are a really good team with a really good head coach and a good quarterback. And I couldn't tell you who the hell was going to be on the center for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the floor is yours.
So I want to backtrack to about October. Ever since then, I've been on the train saying the Seattle Seahawks are pretenders, not contenders. They were the biggest NFC pretenders in the NFC. You could look at my profile. I've made that take numerous of times. Not once, not twice, but probably 3 times. And again, wildcard weekend, I picked them to lose. The Seahawks had the worst defense in the league for a majority of this year, like 32nd, dead last. When you have a 32nd ranked defense, I will never believe for 1 second that you have any aspirations to win a title. But the thing is, their defense started to turn the corner, and Russell Wilson, who was leading the league in terms of in the MVP conversation, I believe through week 8, he probably was going to win that unanimously. He's never had a vote before in his life, but then this year it looked like he was actually going to get it hands down. As he took a step back, the defense stepped up when they got Jamal Adams back in that lineup, who made a huge difference on that team. But with that being said, I like the way the Rams matched up against the Seahawks. I believe football is a sport all about matchups. DK Metcalf is regarded as a top 2 to 3 receiver wherever you rank him, but he's somewhere in that mix. He's Megatron 2.0, as some may call him. Jalen Ramsey has been the guy to lock him down. He did, I believe, I forget which week it is, but the week that the Rams actually traveled to Seattle and beat them, Jalen Ramsey locked him up, I believe, for 1 catch, 11 yards when Ramsey was guarding him. DK Metcalf played his worst game of the season. And we look at the game on Saturday, Russell Wilson had one great play, which was a broken play that was a DK Metcalf touchdown, which was excellent. Besides that, he was pitiful. The pick six early in that game was awful. A pass 6 inches across the line of scrimmage. He couldn't have played worse. The reason why I like the Rams is your defense will always keep you in games. Maybe a defense can't carry you to win a Super Bowl, but it will keep you in games, which I believed was going to happen this Saturday, and I couldn't have been more right once again.
So let me get this straight. Out of the 6 games, I picked 4 teams, I believe, who were favored, right? I picked 4 teams, I believe, who were favored. Or maybe I think it was maybe 5, because I didn't pick Tennessee. So I got 4 out of 6 games correct. You call me Mr. Vanilla because I picked teams that were favored, even though you somehow want me to go against the grain in games like New Orleans and Chicago, which is obviously ridiculous. Okay, you accurately picked the Browns and the Steelers game, and you accurately picked the Rams and the Seahawks game. In which, if you remember when we were speaking on Clubhouse, which for your listeners, you can follow me on Clubhouse at Marcus Lamar, I said I could very well see those games going either way because they were divisional games, right? The Seahawks and Rams are not games, and the Browns and Steelers are not games where it's like one team is so far ahead of the other. An upset of epic proportion would be if the Chicago Bears went into New Orleans and beat the New Orleans Saints. The Rams going into Seattle and beating the Seahawks is not out of the realm of possibility. The Rams seem to have Seattle's number, and the 49ers seem to have the Rams' number. If you pay attention to the NFC West over the last few seasons, that has been the story. I'm actually going to pick I still have to wait till to see how this week plays out, Green Bay and Los Angeles. I think the Rams have a really good chance to beat the Packers. Like you said, they've got impact players on the defense at all 3 levels, which is linebacking core, the front 7, and the secondary. With that being said, they're going to be in a lot of games. I still don't trust their offense. And the reason I don't trust their offense is because of Goff, Jarrett, okay? Last name, first name. That's why I don't trust their offense. And it's not even the fact that he has a hand injury. It's the fact that he's not shown to be a carrier of the team. Even when he was playing at a quote-unquote MVP level, who was the story of the Rams? It was Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was the story of the Rams when Jared Goff was playing at an extremely high level. Since then, I'm not going to say the kid's regress, but he is what he is. He's not dynamic. He's not elite. He's a really, really, really good quarterback who, if coached up right, can have some success in the NFL. So I'll say this, and I'll turn it back over to you. Everyone out there who wants to get their critique in of Russell Wilson, like, wow, Russell Wilson hasn't accomplished anything since the Legion of Boom has departed. Well, when Pete Carroll elected to choose to invest in Russell Wilson or to turn the keys to the franchise over to him, let's see what has transpired since then. The Seahawks, with the exception of one season, have been a perennial playoff team. They've won a division on multiple occasions. Russell Wilson has been extremely brilliant in the regular season, despite the fact that he's had a porous offensive line, no tight end help up until this season, no perimeter help really up until they drafted DK Metcalf, and his running game has been spotty. Cam Chancellor is out of the league. Richard Sherman is on his last Achilles, literally and figuratively, and Earl Thomas was unceremoniously cut by the Baltimore Ravens after he was found cheating by his wife with somebody else. Now, I'm not going to get into that because that's his personal business, but the point I'm making is that none of them can claim, with the exception of Richard Sherman, an NFL spot on the roster at this moment. And even with Richard Sherman, his better days are behind him. Russell Wilson is the Seattle Seahawks. That in part is the problem why they seem to run into a playoff bug every season.
So the thing with that is it's not necessarily Jared Goff ate alive that Seattle defense because he didn't. The X factor was Cam Akers, who absolutely ran all over that defense, especially in the second quarter. Russell Wilson handed the Rams 6 points with that pick six, which was a disgusting play call, disgusting execution. Would have passed 6 inches beyond the line of scrimmage. Cam Akers ate them alive in the second quarter, and that really put the game to bed. And then Russell Wilson padded, I wouldn't even say padded his stats because his stats were disgusting, but had a garbage time touchdown drive late in that game. He threw I believe he completed 11 passes out of 27 attempts for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He was awful. But don't do that about going that these games could go either or, because you do not believe that in the Steelers-Browns game whatsoever. I have text message proof of you calling me Mr. Cleveland Brown when the Steelers were winning, acting like that was literally going to happen when I kept telling you it's not. And you're trying to act like that you had a good weekend, because you didn't. 4-2 in a wild card weekend is not very good. Try to be like me, who's 6-0, and I was actually giving you real advice, and I was right, and all you had to do is agree with it, and you wouldn't be embarrassing yourself today. So don't give me that nonsense about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, because you were all over them. You were all over them 110%, saying that the Steelers are going to win, and then at the end of the day, we're each going to be 5-1. Don't do that. Stop the nonsense. Not going to let you do that on my platform.
Okay, first of all, you just said 4-2 in a wild card weekend is not good, but the weekend is called wild card weekend, meaning anything can happen. So that shoots your credibility. That shoots the credibility in your statement right then and there. Like I said, it's not like this was a matchup where there was a team that was head and shoulders above the other person. I'm not here to defend the fact that I didn't get a perfect weekend in terms of predicting 6 teams to accurately win. I predicted 4 out of the 6, but that's the thing. That's the difference between you and I. You see, you still think that I care about being right and wrong. I care about ratings and interest, okay? I'm interesting either way. So you want me to come on your show and apologize to you? You have a better chance of hell freezing over than me ever doing that. Now, when we get into the topic later, when we talk about your beloved Brooklyn Nets, who you've adopted because your other sports teams, whether it be the New York Jets, I don't even know who the hell you root for in baseball, have let you down habitually, you're going to owe me an apology because you've doubted my client LeBron James for way too long. You're going to try and hop on the gravy train and the bandwagon when we hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy at the conclusion of this season, but I'm not going to let you. I'm going to have tighter security than they did at the Capitol last week, Wednesday, okay? You're not going to be invited to the parade. You will not be let anywhere near the LeBron James camp or Lakers Nation because we see you for what you are, Mr. Falco. I don't even give a damn if your show is called Falco's Facts. The fact is you doubted my guy for way too long. You can have the Brooklyn Nets all you want to, Lakers in 5 when we talk about it later.
You know what? We're going to jump onto that topic real quick, but I'm not going to let you do that. I am accused of being a quote-unquote LeBronian like you are too. So don't ever say I am doubting him, first of all. Don't ever try to come on my platform and say I'm doubting LeBron when I'm called a LeBronian. So I don't understand that point. But to the Brooklyn Nets, let's do it. Kyrie Irving missing in action all of a sudden for quote-unquote personal reasons. Talk to me. What's up?
Honestly, I don't know what's up. I typically have a lot to say, but on this particular subject, I think it would be irresponsible for me to offer an opinion when I don't have all the information available. Now, what I will say is this: the information that's being reported, and again, that's all it is. Everything that's happening right now is alleged because, as to my knowledge, as of this episode, there hasn't been any video footage linking him to doing anything or committing any offenses. So all of this is being reported and it's alleged. But from what's being reported, it does not look good for one Mr. Kyrie Irving. Now, look, I'm not into the overreaction business, even though I know that business drives the business that we're in, which is the sports industry. People love hot takes, all right? People love clicks. They love clickbait, all right? They love sensationalism. That's a part of journalism. But let's just keep things in perspective. The Brooklyn Nets still have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I don't know if Kyrie might have COVID. I don't know if he just needs time away from the team. I honestly don't know what the hell's going on. But what I do know is this: regardless of if Kyrie's got a lot going on upstairs in his heart, in his personal life, and regardless how well Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving play on the court together, the Brooklyn Nets are not winning the title this year. Like, I think this year, despite the fact that the league is more balanced, quote unquote, and has more parity than it's had in years past, this NBA season is predictably easy to pick who is going to win the title. And it's the Los Angeles Lakers. The Clippers have shown us who they are. Like, we keep waiting for the Clippers to magically morph into something that they're not. They've shown us who they are. George Paul can go out there and light up the scoreboard every single night. He could average 40 during a 30-game stretch. Guess what? We know because history has shown us what he's going to do come playoff time. Now, can he rewrite that narrative? Sure. Can he have a great postseason this year? Sure. But that doesn't mean we get to forget about the body of work that he's produced and showed to us already. So with that being said, Kyrie Irving and the Nets aren't in trouble because Kyrie's quote unquote MIA. They're in trouble because if by some odd stretch of the imagination, and I want you to really imagine this because this is the closest they're going to get to the finals. If by some odd stretch of the imagination, the Brooklyn Nets happen to make it to the NBA Finals, guess who's going to be waiting for them across the other side of the ledger? It's a 6'8", 250 locomotive named Goat James. And guess who's going to be riding his flank? It's a 6'11", maybe even 7 foot, depending on what shoes he's wearing. Big man and Anthony Davis, who can handle the guard like a ball, who could handle the ball like a guard and shoot from the perimeter and guard all 5 positions and play pick and roll. They're not beating the Lakers, period, point blank. So you're going to be wrong, Mr. Falco. And I want you to keep this same energy that you have right now because I'm not going to let you get away with it.
Number one, how many times did I tell you that the Nets were going to have a slow start, which I predicted 8-7? Come on, did I? Yes or no? Did I? Yes or no? Just be honest. Did I?
You did say they were going to start 8-7. What did you do?
Thank you. Which is actually kind of on. They're 5-6 right now, but I still believe they're technically on pace to do that. I think they could win 3 of the next 4. With that being said, my new favorite quote now is the famous quote from Once Upon a Time, Aaron Rodgers. RELAX, relax. It's going to be okay. Stop worrying about the Brooklyn Nets. They are just fine. We've seen this movie too many times in sports and the NBA. Multiple occasions I could relate to. LeBron James being a part of that multiple times. Is Kevin Durant and LeBron? Absolutely not. There's never been a day in his life he's better than LeBron. I don't think that day is going to come anytime soon. But with that being said, we could look at the 2010-2011 villain Miami Heat. They started 8-7. People panicked. LeBron said Rome was not built in a day. They figured it out. Obviously, they had the meltdown. Long story short, they ended up winning back-to-back titles. LeBron's team in 2014-2015, when he joined Kyrie Irving in Cleveland, they started 8-7. The media said LeBron's done with his title days. He just wanted to go home and chill out in Cleveland. People tried to make that narrative. And then when Kyrie left him high and dry, there was a time in the 2017-18 stretch where in the month of January, LeBron had the lowest box score plus minus of his entire career. The team hated each other. They had awful chemistry. People were questioning if the Cavs were going to make the damn playoffs, and they ended up going to the finals. Kevin Durant is a bad dude. He's regarded as a cheat code in your words, and I could totally agree with that. He's a special, special talent and absolutely the second best player in the league. I don't think that spot is up for debate whatsoever. The Brooklyn Nets, with a new coach, with new stars entering, are going to start slow. This is totally normal, as I predicted, as I expected, and yes, I'm keeping the same energy with this team. Everyone who's a casual who hasn't been following the league that long is going to freak out. They're going to panic that, oh God, the Nets don't have a playoff spot right now, 11 games in. Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be a bottom seed team? They're going to have an early round exit. Maybe the Bucks or the Heat or the Celtics or one of those teams are going to beat them. Stop the nonsense. Stop it right now because you're just going to embarrass yourself. And when it comes to June or July, whenever the hell the finals is, you're going to look like an idiot. So with that being said, they are just fine. Do I respect Kyrie Irving's actions to just go missing? No, I don't, because this is a job. He's on a contract that he's getting paid $141 million, I believe, in 4 years, if I remember that correctly. With that being said, your job, you're getting paid to show up to work and ball out. Unless it's something family related that is more serious, that is one thing. But I remember Brett Favre, when he lost his father, he came out on a Monday Night Football game and dropped 4 touchdowns in a victory at a phenomenal game. I'm all for NBA players having luxury in terms of the players' power, moving free agency, recruiting players. I'm all for that. But when you think you could just go missing in action and just not show up to work, that I have no tolerance for. This is going to be a struggle going throughout the year in the regular season. Steve Nash is still figuring out his rotation, which I don't like at all right now, but I believe he will figure it out. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are types of players where they're going to be the ones hiring the coaches. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving hired Steve Nash. If you don't think that, you are a rookie to this sport, following this sport. I believe they got to figure out the rotations, because I don't like how KD and Kyrie are basically playing every minute, every second rather, alongside each other. I like what the Lakers do a lot better, having LeBron and AD in the game. Whether not that's both of them, but one of the two or both are in the game for all 48 minutes. I think the Nets got to do something like that. They have to figure out their rotation. As they build chemistry, they're going to be a deadly team. And I stick with my take. They will get to the NBA Finals as long as they are healthy in 15 games or less. The NBA Finals, that's going to be a dogfight. I have picked the Nets. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to hop off the bandwagon. It's going to be a dogfight of the series, and I really believe this will be the best finals that we've watched in our lifetime. Like, I genuinely believe that this is going to be the best finals we're going to watch in our lifetime in terms of how far this series can go and how competitive it's going to be. It's going to be a similar of an even matchup. I just believe that the Nets they match up really well against the Lakers. Not that their star power is better, because it's not. You know how big of a fan I am of AD. AD is my second favorite player in the league. So I'm not trying to say their star power is different. I think the role players of the Nets are better. I think matchup-wise, they look really good. But what Montrezl Harrell is doing and what Dennis Schroeder is doing is boosting this Lakers team a ton. This is going to be a fun season moving forward.
Yo, you are all over the place. You're all over the map. 1 minute you're in New York, the next minute you're in California, then you're in Florida, then you're in Texas. I need you to stick to one central point. First of all, you fixed your lips to steal what I always say, which is that there's never been a day in Kevin Durant's basketball life where he's been better than LeBron. So I'll give you credit for that. Good job. You saw the writing on the wall. You listen to people that are older than you, that are more experienced than you, and you agree with me. So I appreciate that. But with that being said, if the disparity between KD and LeBron is as big as you say it is, and LeBron's effect on teams is greater than what Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have proven to be, then why in the hell would you fix your lips to say that the Brooklyn Nets are going to beat the Lakers in a 7-game series? It is preposterous. Could you explain to me, please?
We've had this conversation numerous of times. I guess you have a mind span of a goldfish that goes in one ear out the other. They don't remember a lot of things quick. So I'll remind you again why I like this matchup. The Lakers' perimeter defense is not good at all. That's one of their biggest weaknesses, which Kyrie and KD, if you're going to ask me, they're probably the two best ISO scorers in the league. If you want to throw in James Harden there, that's fine. They have consensusly 2 of the top 3 ISO scorers in the league. Down the stretch, they have 2 guys they can rely on to give the ball to, and don't give me crap that they missed some shots late down the stretch. We've seen LeBron do that plenty of times, but they show up in the postseason. So I'm going to keep the same energy as I do with LeBron as I do with other guys. Guys are going to miss shots. They're going to miss good looks down the stretch. It happens. It's a part of sports. It's a part of basketball. They match up really well against them. The way Kyrie and KD score is on the perimeter with beating guys on the perimeter. That's how they're going to get their buckets. The thing with LeBron and AD is they want to get inside. What do the Nets have? They have rim protection in Jarrett Allen and DeAndre Jordan. That's a way to contain them and slow them down a little bit. Are you going to stop LeBron and AD? Of course not. They're going to get theirs. They'll find the way to get their numbers. Of course. But a way to slow them down a little bit is find a rim protector. If you remember LeBron's days in South Beach, which a lot of people may say that was his best days of his career. When they played the Pacers against Roy Hibbert, that was probably why the Pacers were able to push those games, 6 games and 7 games, because a rim protector could contain him and slow him down a little bit. And as LeBron gets older, he's not as athletic. He's found ways to still impact the game and be the best player in the league, which he still is today consensusly. But with rim protection there, I like their matchup, and I like the way the Nets shoot the 3-point ball more than I do the Los Angeles Lakers. But I still am my main thing is how fast the Nets are going to coast through the Eastern Conference, rather. I'm still believing that they will get through the East in 15 games or less, and this finals is going to be a dogfight. Am I rooting for the Nets? No, of course not, but I believe it's going to be epic, and I think both of us, we could definitely agree on we want to see a 7-game series. We want to see a dogfight between the 2 best players in the league.
So let me get this straight. You're concerned about the Lakers' perimeter defense, and the Lakers, I believe, are 8-3. So we're 11 games into the season. Not a real huge sample size, but nevertheless, remember, there's only 72 games this year. It's not the traditional 82-game season. So this season is going to go really fast because we're already down 10 games. So after 20 games, I would think that's an accurate sample size to start saying, okay, this team has a problem with this. This is what they need to work in as we move towards the second half of the season. So since it's only a 72-game season, that means the midway point would be 36 games. So we're 11 games into a 36-game midway point, which means we've about played a third of the games they're going to play before the midway point. The Lakers are top 10 in defense. They're 6th in the NBA currently. You know where your Brooklyn Nets are? They're 22nd. They're 22nd right now. And if you actually watch the games instead of living on teamrankings.com, which I just checked, shout out to them. Their website is phenomenal. If you actually watch the games, the Lakers actually have a commitment to defense. They actually compete on the defensive end. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, before Kyrie Irving went MIA, were together, they had no commitment to defense. Now, I understand you're going to say, well, they're still trying to figure out rotations. They're trying to figure out who's going to be in what spot. But defense is not necessarily about scheme all the time. It's about effort, Okay, it is about effort. And if you watch Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and the Nets team, whether it's Karis LeVert or Spencer Dinwiddie, it is apparent. It is increasingly apparent that those four players in particular are interested in getting theirs on the offensive side of the ball. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's going to help them win a lot of games. But for you to sit up there and confidently and arrogantly and smugly, which I like it. I hate the shirt, but I like your confidence. For you to sit up there and say arrogantly and smugly that the Nets are going to cakewalk to the Eastern Conference Finals, even after this slow start, even after what you've seen from the Celtics and the Sixers, okay, or other teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, you're wrong. Not only are you going to be wrong on that front, but you're going to be wrong on your ultimate point, which is you picked the Brooklyn Nets to beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. The series is not going 7. If they play tomorrow, the series will be over in 5 games. It will be over in 5 games. It might go 6, but they're not even getting it there.
There's a reason why the finals is in July or August. I still don't know the date, to be quite honest with you. But no, I did not expect the Nets were going to have a hot start, and I expected them to have a slow start, which is exactly happening. So far, I'm on cue. Stop the nonsense. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this slander piece and you trying to be slick, because really you're not. And don't critique my shirt, because it's actually a very nice shirt. I get a lot of compliments on it. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say about it, so don't do that. That's number one. Number two, the Nets are just fine. Name me one team, which nobody could do. Everyone is up here telling me that I'm ridiculous for having this hot take of how fast the Nets will get for the Eastern Conference. I tell everybody, I say, name me one team that will push them 6 or 7 games or beat them. I'm still waiting. I've not heard anyone give me a team. I've not heard anyone give me a legitimate argument. If you say the Bucks, I'm going to destroy that argument and debunk it faster than you can blink. So do you. The floor is yours.
I can name you 3. You just name one of them, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Boston Celtics. Like, look, I think you need to understand that in our lifetime, in terms of the actual NBA playoffs, outside of a team featuring LeBron, who you and I both acknowledge is the greatest player of all time, outside of a team featuring him or the 2017 version of the Golden State Warriors, nobody's just cakewalking through the playoffs. Like, nobody's pulling up and cakewalking through the playoffs. Kevin Durant, as great as he is not LeBron James, period, point blank. Kevin Durant featuring Kyrie Irving in this Nets roster are not the Golden State Warriors, period, point blank. You need to stop sleeping on the other Eastern Conference teams, to include the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Sixers, because the Brooklyn Nets have this, according to you, they have this thing where they can just get out of bed and just go play basketball. There's only been 2 teams in my lifetime that have been able to do that. The 2017 Golden State Warriors featuring 2 MVP-level players, not 1, 2 MVP-level players in Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, and the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe featuring 2 MVP-level players in the early 2000s. In addition to that, the pieces surrounding both of those teams were phenomenal. The Brooklyn Nets, Spencer Dinwiddie, we don't know if he's going to be back in time for the playoffs. Kyrie Irving, you can't even tell me where he's at right now. You know where I know LeBron is? LeBron has a game tonight against Houston Rockets, so he's in Houston. I can definitively tell you where LeBron is. I can tell you where Anthony Davis is. You can't tell me where one of your key pieces is to the Brooklyn Nets winning the championship is at this very moment in time and history, which is 2:44 Eastern time on January 12th, 2021. So with that, I understand that the finals is months away, but again, it doesn't matter. Even if I grant you the premise that the Nets are going to cakewalk through the playoffs, which they're not beating the Los Angeles Lakers. And you know that in your heart of hearts, but you are going to die on this hill, and I can't wait for it to happen. But they're not beating the Nets. Excuse me, the Lakers, the Nets are not beating the Lakers.
The fact that you think the Bucks are going to compete in the Eastern Conference is honestly, it's funny to me. There's no logic behind that argument. When is Giannis all of a sudden going to flip a switch and be like, oh, okay, he's going to be a closer now. He's going to get you a bucket. Name me one guy you could trust down the stretch to close out a ball game on that team. Name me one before I...
Giannis.
All right, so I guess I'll have to take you down memory lane, which I already believe you did before, but your goldfish memory is really showing. We're gonna go down memory lane real quick. The series against the Miami Heat. All right, Game 1. What happened when it was 96-95? I'm not making it up. Giannis went 0-for-1 for the rest of the game and had 1 point the rest of the game. Is that a closer? Is that the back-to-back MVP? I don't think so. You're down 1-0. What about Game 2? You were basically playing catch-up all game long, and in the fourth quarter, you had a 4 to 5 minute stretch where the Bucks did not score a single point as a team. You're down 2-0. What about Game 3, the time to turn the series around, right? If you're going to come down, and this is against a number 5 seed Miami Heat team, number 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. You're up 87-75 entering the fourth quarter, and what happens? You get blown out 40-13. That is pathetic. Giannis had 4 fourth quarter points, a box score plus minus of -25. That's your back-to-back MVP. That's the guy I'm supposed to expect is going to all of a sudden close out games and beat a team like the Brooklyn Nets. Are you kidding me? Stop it. You don't even believe that for 1 second. You don't.
Again, the subject of this segment is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a phenomenal player. He's not a top 10 player in the NBA. As much as I love him, he's not a top 10 player. With that being said, you're telling me that Kevin Durant's the second best player in the NBA, and I can agree with you there. But who do I trust more to get more out of the teammates around them? Is it Kevin Durant or is it LeBron James? Because I already told you, if I were to go through the 10 best players, if the Lakers and Nets played a series, I could easily go 6 Lakers, 4 Nets, or 5 Lakers, 5 Nets. And with that being said, what that tells me is that the complementary pieces are a wash. The Lakers acquired Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder, who are proven to be valuable cogs off of a bench. Both of them were in contention for the 6th Man of the Year award. One of them actually won it. As much as we like Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie's hurt, so his future is uncertain. Karis LeVert is a great offensive player. Keyword, great offensive player. DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen, for as much as you like to talk about them being rim protectors or you don't like the Lakers defense, where has it been? Have we seen flashes of it? Like, I want you to understand this. The Nets played the Washington Wizards with Russell Westbrook, who can't shoot, and Bradley Beal, who does nothing but score. And the final score, I believe, was over 140. Both teams scored over 140. That's without overtime. That wasn't an all-star game. That wasn't an all-star game. It was a regular season game featuring no overtime, and the Brooklyn Nets allowed 140-plus points to a Washington Wizards team. If you don't think that their defense is an issue, and again, it's still early, but what I'm telling you is this. LeBron and AD is too much. You believe Anthony Davis is a top 5 player. I don't. I have him at 7th. The history of the NBA has told us that you're not beating 2 top 5 players in a series, whether it be Steph and KD, whether it be Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and it's damn sure not happening with LeBron and AD. So you need to get this notion out of your head that the Nets are making the finals. I told you I have a sneaky suspicion that they're not even going to make it to the finals. I want them to make it to the finals because when they get beaten by the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm going to be looking directly for you. You and all those KD and Kyrie fans out there, but I don't even think they're going to make it there. So we don't even have to worry about that.
First of all, I'm not a KD fan. That's number one. I've been regarded as a hater. I don't hate him anymore because he left the Warriors, but I am not a KD fan whatsoever. That's number one. Number two, again, I look at that 2018 Cavs team who played in the Eastern Conference, which I believe was LeBron's best version of himself, especially offensively. I remember in a game in January where the Oklahoma City Thunder, a Russell Westbrook team, dropped 148 points on them in regulation. That team was such a disaster. That was the worst month I've ever seen from a LeBron team since I've been following basketball for about the past 10, what was it, 12 years, something like that? Whatever.
Look at this guy.
And besides the fact, you still gave me no logic behind any team that's going to beat the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs because I don't believe that, and you certainly don't believe that. And I'm not trying to say that about Kyrie, about that he's not a top 10 player or anything or this and that. Hold on, this is what I wanted to get at. Now I remember. I have text messages with you specifically. You've told me I haven't cared about the NBA regular season in years. Quote unquote, Marcus Lamar. Those are his words. Those are not mine. So why now are you trying to tell me about a game against the Washington Wizards in January? Why now do you care about it? When you've told me via text message, FaceTime, whenever we spoke, you said I have not cared about the NBA regular season in years. Your words, not mine. Answer that, please.
Well, I mean, how many times on this show, which again, thanks for having me, phenomenal platform. Shout out to Worldwide Sports Radio Network for giving you this opportunity to, invite people on like myself. How many times in this show are you going to deceive your viewers? You've made reference to text messages, which is supposed to be a personal thing between you and I on multiple occasions. At this point, I don't know if I should call you Brandon Falco. I don't know if I should call you Mike Pence, or I don't know if I should call you Bill Belichick, because it's obvious that you cannot be trusted. But that's neither here nor there. As I digress. Here's the thing with the Brooklyn Nets. I don't care about the regular season. But again, even last year, when the Lakers and Clippers were talked about all season, I had a sneaky suspicion, as much as I wanted to see it happen, that it wasn't going to happen. Everyone wants to see Lakers and Nets in the finals. We want it too much. It's almost like, yo, this is the matchup we're dying for. It's so many narratives and storylines. You got KD versus AD. You got KD versus LeBron. You got LeBron versus KD. Who's the best player in the NBA? You got LeBron and Kyrie being teammates. Okay, you got, can KD and Kyrie win a championship without Steph and without LeBron? Thinking about all the storylines that a journalist or a media outlet could run with in those finals is remarkable. It brings a smile to my face. I just can definitively say that when the smoke clears, the Lakers will be there. The Lakers, I think you can agree, will represent the Western Conference. I'm not so certain about the Brooklyn Nets. And again, I'll give you credit. You said if everyone's healthy, your prediction is presuming health. But that's the thing. Can you definitively say that they're going to be healthy? You can't. I mean, I can't say the same thing about the Lakers, but there are 3 things in life I can count on: death, taxes, and LeBron being healthy or in the NBA Finals. In addition to that, we've heard Anthony Davis attest to the fact that LeBron James has made him tougher. He's made him more liable or likely to fight through injury or play through pain. Whereas in New Orleans, who cares? Like, if you feel like you hurt or you're in pain, you're going to sit out because your team's not going anywhere anyway. But with the Lakers, you know, yo, if Bron is out there giving you his all, I need to be matching his level of play. So again, there's a lot going on. There's too many components. And again, you don't even believe that they're a championship team in their first year. I know Steve Kerr won the championship with the Warriors in 2015, but if we're being honest, was LeBron James not devoid of his second and third best player? And then if you can answer that question, the second question I would have to you would be, if Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were playing, and I know we don't do ifs in sports, shout out to Carl Kalanges, if they were playing, do you think the Golden State Warriors would have still been that team? And the answer is no, because we saw the Cavs go to 6 games with them, featuring Matthew Dellavedova as their second best option. So don't give me this, oh, I'm not bound into that. Since Steve Nash is a first-year head coach, he's not going to be able to win a championship. It typically doesn't happen. Doc Rivers didn't do it last year with the Clippers. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build a foundation unless you add 2 really unique players, which, as much as we love KD and Kyrie, only one of them is a top 5 player.
Well, I'm with you there about that. If Kyrie was healthy, I won't even acknowledge Kevin Love. You know how I feel, how overrated he is. I'm not going to acknowledge that. But if Kyrie was there, I would believe the Cavs would win that 100%. When Ty Lue showed up in Cleveland, they won a title in their first year. Things are meant to change as things evolve, things get better. So yes, as a first-year head coach, I do believe the Nets can make the finals. Again, I think it's going to be a dogfight of the series. I'm not going to sit here with super confidence that, like, yo, the Nets are winning the finals. Like, I'm saying, yo, they're going to make the finals. I truly believe, outside of injury, which I'll give you. Am I confident that the Nets are going to stay healthy? No. But I can say that about any team. I can say that with the Lakers. I don't know if AD could get hurt, God forbid. Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder. I don't know. Like, no, we can't predict that. So I'm saying bearing injury, of course. So that's my main point about injury. But can the Nets win the finals? Of course. 100. They can win it. Will they is another story. Again, I think it's going to be one of the best finals we see in our lifetime. But I'll give you one more word before we move topic.
Can they win the finals? No. The reason they can't is because of who is in LA. When we look back on the Brooklyn Nets era featuring KD and Kyrie, it's going to be considered a failure. The first year of their era, which they signed last year, both identical deals, 4-year deals, Kevin Durant missed the entire season because he was rehabbing. Okay, cool. So that's already 1 year off the books. Kyrie subsequently missed a majority of the season because he got injured. So now we're coming into year 2. They're not winning the title this year. They're going to be a year older next year. That means they have 2 years left on the deal and 2 years to make something really actually happen. Do I think that they're going to win a championship during their tenure in Brooklyn? I don't. I don't see it happening because as long as LeBron and Anthony Davis, and LeBron is still playing at a high level. Like, I'm watching him and he's coasting to 22, 9, and 7 on a nightly basis, which that's like slightly above average all-star numbers. But for LeBron, that's like a precipitous decline considering his greatness. But that's the thing. He's saving his energy and conserving his energy because he knows what the ultimate goal is. They just finished playing basketball in October. I'm with you. I want the Nets to make the finals. I just don't think it's going to happen.
We'll talk about the regular season before we move topics. When the Clippers beat the Lakers on opening night, they did on Christmas. Everyone in the media reacted and overreacted to it and said the Clippers are going to win. I know I didn't. I know you didn't. So that's why I'm trying to keep the same energy with the Nets early in this regular season. They will be just fine in the Eastern Conference. One more thing before we go. Again, as I said before, and I'll say it again. In the words of Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. Relax. It's going to be okay. But I want to move topics right now. So let's talk about your other guy, your other client rather, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. They had an ugly win on the road against the Washington football team with a backup quarterback. Should we be worried about them going into the Superdome against the New Orleans Saints? Is your guy's title run on the line?
I struggle with this question because I want to respond emotionally, meaning with my heart, but I have to answer with my head. And the reality is, of course, they should be worried. Anytime you have to go on the road in the playoffs, that's no easy task. I understand that fans aren't in attendance, but the New Orleans Saints are in the position that they're in because they are a damn good football team. If you look at this season wire to wire, they have been better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I will admit this. When the season first started, I said if the Saints and Bucs play in the playoffs, I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because I believe in Tom Brady more than I believe in Drew Brees. The Saints are coming off 3 consecutive seasons of epic failures in the postseason. The Minneapolis Miracle, we know there was some level of luck involved, but nevertheless, I want to bring this point up because it gets swept under the rug. Prior to that sequence of events in the fourth quarter and the conclusion of the game, the Minnesota Vikings were up almost by 20 points against the New Orleans Saints. The great Drew Brees, and I say that to be funny, the great Drew Brees was trailing Case Keenum on the road 17-0 at one point in that football game. Now, ultimately, he marched back, but they caught an L. So we don't care that he ultimately marched back because he didn't win. I fast forward to the year after, right? We know, the Los Angeles Rams, they had robbed the Saints. The referees robbed the Saints. All this wham. No fan base in the NFL cries more than New Orleans Saints fan base. Oh, we got robbed. We got jobbed. Wham. If you wouldn't put yourself in position to put the game in the hands of the referees, then you would be better off. But I want to remind people, even in overtime, the Saints won the coin toss. And Drew Brees, right on schedule, right on cue, threw a midfield interception. And this nonsense about the Rams getting lucky, Greg the Leg Zuerlein kicked the 57-yard field goal to send them to the Super Bowl. They ain't nothing lucky about 57 yards, period, point blank. Last year, Drew Brees and his team, the Saints, got thoroughly outplayed by Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings yet again. For some reason, the Vikings seem to have their number. Not only did they get outplayed, but Drew Brees was the third best quarterback on the field that day behind Kirk Cousins and Taysom Hill. So I say all that to say this. The Saints are favored, and rightfully so. I still haven't decided who I'm going to pick in this game because my heart is telling me to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but my head is telling me to pick the Saints because the Saints are a more balanced team. They run the football, they can throw the football, and their defense is better, I would say, probably than Tampa. Tampa has a really good rush defense, but New Orleans' overall defense is better. And let's be honest, I'm going off recent history. The Saints have dominated the Bucs this season in both matchups. The first week of the season, okay, we'll give them a pass because there was no preseason, no OTAs, all right, no offseason really. But they got embarrassed that week, all right? But then later in the season, the matchup we were all looking forward to, I believe it was like week 9, we're looking forward to the rematch. I thought Tampa for sure had that game. It was AB's first week, and they got embarrassed again. They got blown out. Now, I will say this. What works for Tampa is that it's really hard for them. It's really hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. But I would say that Tampa should be respectful of the threat that New Orleans poses. Like, let's not get it twisted. Just because they've had meltdowns in the postseason, the Saints are still a good football team. They're in the thick of things year in, year out. So this game is going to be tough for me to predict.
The Saints are favored, rightfully so. They're at home. They have the better record. They beat the Bucs twice this year. But that does not mean I'm picking the New Orleans Saints whatsoever. I'm very confident in this game, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I am taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and here's why. Again, history repeats itself. I believe it's going to repeat itself once again. I don't trust Drew Brees anymore. I think his championship days are over. Who knows how bad his ribs are, his cracked ribs. I think the injuries are going to affect him. They didn't look all that great against a sorry Chicago Bears team. Sure, the Bears got a great defense. Mitchell Trubisky is terrible. Yes, Bears fans, I'm going to remind you again that you traded up for North Carolina Mitch Trubisky and you pass on DeShaun Watson at Mahomes. Hope that hurts your feelings. With that being said, they didn't play all that well. I trust Tom Brady way more than I do Drew Brees, and you can agree with that yourself. I don't care that Brady's on the road. I trust his experience. I trust his competitive nature. The Bucs are hot. And so is Tom Brady. Brady, as you reminded me, 43 touchdowns at age 43, throwing for over 5,000 yards, which is, people slept on that. My take on the Bucs all year, which I've been predicting them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to lie. September, October, I said that's going to be a slow 2 months for them. I said, like, Brady's going to, maybe it's going to take some time to gel in the offense. I could see them struggling. But I said once November, December hit is where Brady's going to thrive, and so are the Buccaneers. That didn't happen all that well because once he hit October, it looked like the Bucs were hot. November was one of the worst months I've ever seen Tom Brady play the quarterback position. He looked horrific. And then once December came, Brady flipped the switch, and he looked back better than he looks like he turned back the clock 4 or 5 years. So when it comes to January, it's really hard for me to ever bet against him. I like their rush defense. I like Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator, certainly not as a head coach. AB looks like he's coming back to himself. Mike Edwards and Chris Godwin are studs on the outside. Cameron Brate's a pretty good tight end. Gronk looks like he's turning back the clock. And again, if you're going to ask Brady to manage a game, I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. The thing is, in sports, when you have a heartbreaking defeat at any point, I always think it's very hard to bounce back and rebound from that. Once you take that hard hit, in like a relationship, that hard breakup, it's hard to ever recover and get back to what you had with the good old days. We look at the Legion of Boom. Once the Legion of Boom departed, the Seahawks have not been that same team. When the Denver Broncos had that great defense, Peyton Manning left, they never got back to that same team. I'm kind of looking at that as the New Orleans Saints. Once it was the Stephon Diggs miracle, I believe that was the first one. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think I got that right. That was the first one. Once that happened, I believe they will never recover from that. Again, the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan, that was the MVP that year, up 28-3, your favorite moment probably in your life. I mean, that explains enough. They never rebounded from that time, and they're still blowing that big of leads each and every week in the entire 2020 season. So I believe history's going to repeat itself. I don't trust the Saints. I don't trust Drew Brees. I haven't been a fan of them all year long. I think the Bucs are just simply a better team. Should they be favored? No, because of what we've seen all year long, that the fact that the Bucs are on the road. But I do like Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to win this game, 100%. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm very confident with my pick.
Well, don't speak for me. First of all, the comeback where the Patriots came back by 25 points against the Falcons was not the best moment of my life. It was tied with LeBron coming back from 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors in 2016. That was a phenomenal year. 2016 was a year of the comeback. It was several 3-1 deficits blown, whether it was Cubs, Indians. But that's neither here nor there. Here's the thing. Again, I really want the Bucs to win. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm a staunch Tom Brady supporter, staunch. And I want him to win because I want it to be further proven that it was about him and his brilliance and his excellence with the Patriots and not about Bill Belichick. I keep telling people we've seen Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. We had never seen Tom Brady without Bill Belichick up until this season. And guess what? We've done that. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not Bruce Arians' team. That's Tom Brady's team. All right? That's Tom Brady's team. You left out Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller is like a poor man's version of Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. Brady seems to have found some type of synergy or chemistry with him. He always needs some wide receiver on the team that's going to make big plays, and he seems to be that guy is Scotty Miller. In addition to that, you got Mike Evans, you got Cameron Brate, you've got Rob Gronkowski, who I don't even think he had a catch last week. And by the way, Chris Godwin, right? Godwin and some of those other receivers actually dropped passes, which means Brady would have had a bigger day throwing the football, and they could have led to even more points. So, yeah, they struggled, quote unquote, with the Washington football team, but that game went exactly as I expected it to go. I told you that I could see the Floridian slip. I told you that I could see the Bucs winning that game, but I could see Washington covering the spread, which was 8.5 or 8, whatever it was, which in essence, that's what happened. Like the Patriots, why do I keep saying the Patriots? The Bucs won the game and they pulled away late. At one point in the game, it was like 31 to, I think, 12 or 31 to 18. And then there was a late touchdown or a field goal, whatever the case may be, have been for Washington. But Washington was never beating them. The Saints are not the Washington football team. They pose a different problem. They've got playmakers all over the field. They've got a playmaker out of the backfield in Kamara, who is one of the better running backs, not just running the football, but receiving as well. As much as we love Derrick Henry, he's a one-dimensional running back. He's only going to run the football. Kamara is a dual threat, and I love running backs like him. On top of that, he's got a lot of flash to his game. You've got Michael Thomas, who nobody runs intermediate and slant routes better than Michael Thomas in the NFL. Period, point blank. That includes Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, AB. Michael Thomas is it when it comes to that. And on top of that, the Saints got playmakers on defense. Look, let's just call it what it is. They got playmakers on defense. So the game, that's actually my favorite game of the weekend. Out of all of the games, it's Sunday. It's the 6:40 game on Fox. That's the game I'm most looking forward to. I'm not going to give you a prediction right now because I honestly don't know. This is really, really, really tough for me because a part of me feels like this is Drew Brees' last chance to have a farewell tour. Because if he beats the Bucs and the Packers lose, because I don't see him going to Lambeau and beating Aaron Rodgers, that means he would host a championship game, an NFC championship game against the Rams, and I think they would have a good chance to beat the Rams and then possibly go into the Super Bowl. So I'm split. I'm not gonna lie, I'm split.
I still don't like the Saints in this game. I still think they just have a ton of question marks. History repeats itself. I am too high on this Bucs team. I have been all year long. I just believe in that fourth quarter when things get tight, it's hard to doubt Tom Brady. You know that he's a guy who has that ability to flip a switch. I don't think Drew Brees can. I do believe that Tom Brady can. I like the Bucs in this game. I'm very confident in them, and I don't see any other outcome. Sure, that they didn't play all that well against Washington. They should have played better. People probably thought that should have been a game that should be a blowout. But with the Saints, they didn't look all that good last week either, and they didn't play that great of a team. Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback. In my eyes, I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback in this league. So to make the excuse that the Bucs didn't play well, and that's going to hold a bigger effect, but the Saints played all that well. And if we look at the Saints, Michael Thomas has been in and out of the lineup all year long. He basically hasn't been healthy. So I don't think this is the 2019 version of Michael Thomas. He's not himself right now. So I don't know if we could count that, we could count him in to be that guy that he used to be in that security blanket for Drew Brees that he is right now. And Drew Brees' health is a big question mark as well, so I don't think it's that simple where we could just rule in the Saints are going to have all these weapons and stuff. But of course, the Saints are a superior team to Washington, 100%. And the Bucs are more superior than the Chicago Bears were. So we could wash that argument away. It's really tough it's really difficult to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know a guy who's beaten Tom Brady twice in the same year outside of Mark Sanchez. Had to get you with that one. But besides that, I don't think that Drew Brees is going to get Brady's number 3 straight times.
I don't know why you're doing the Mark Sanchez tidbit because you're not even a Jets fan. You haven't claimed them in years. And I have text messages, to prove this. You're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. You've adopted them as your new NFL franchise and I'm not mad at you, brother. I'm not mad at you. I love you like a brother. I've been telling you for years that the Jets don't deserve your fandom, okay? You need to have better sports self-esteem. So I'm not even mad at you. I'm not going to ridicule you or get on you because you no longer root for them. So don't throw the Mark Sanchez tidbit in there because you're not even a Jets fan anymore. Now, with that being said, look, again, everything you said is spot on. Tom Brady, it's really hard to bet against Tom Brady. I don't feel comfortable doing this. I told you the Bucs are not winning the Super Bowl. They're not a Super Bowl team in my eyes. All right, they're not a Super Bowl team. Could they win it? Sure, but when the smoke clears, do I see that being the case? The answer to that is no. Now they pose a very, very, very interesting challenge because if they beat New Orleans and the Packers beat the Rams, they're gonna have to go to Lambeau Field to make it to the Super Bowl. So they're gonna work for this. But I'm always wary, even if they get past the Saints and happen to go play the Packers, of teams that play in either dome environments or in climates or weather that is warm, going to the frozen tundra. This is Aaron. There's nobody in the playoffs who has more pressure than Aaron Rodgers. Drew Brees might retire at the end of the season. Tom Brady's got another year left on his deal. But both of them, their status as NFL legends and royalty, in my eyes, is cemented. Could Drew Brees use another Super Bowl ring? Absolutely. But Drew Brees has something that Aaron Rodgers doesn't, and that's a bunch of NFL records. Whether they're, stat pad or whatever the case may be, that's just the reality. And on top of that, he's more likable than Aaron Rodgers is. People like Drew Brees. Outside of that gaffe at the beginning of the season, which I'm not going to get into too much, where people were giving him pushback because he was conservative, whatever the case may be. Prior to that point, Drew Brees is known as Walter Payton, a great humanitarian, all the efforts he did with Hurricane Katrina and the relief fund or the relief effort. People like Drew Brees. But Aaron Rodgers, the path is set. You have home field advantage. You had an MVP level season. This is your second year with a new head coach. You've got an all-stud pro wide receiver in Devontae Adams, and you have the home field advantage. You're playing a Rams team, which I don't know if you checked the spread. The spread opened at 9 and has since gone down to 6.5. Like, it's steadily decreased. It opened at 9, and I made sure to check it in the immediate aftermath of Sunday's games. I was like, let me see what the opening spread is going to be, and it was 9. The only spread bigger than that was Kansas City and Cleveland, which I believe is at 10, right? That is big. To say that someone is a 9-point underdog to another team in the playoffs means that you don't think they should be on the same football field as them. It's really disrespectful if we're being honest, because they give the home team usually a 3 points just for being home. So they give you a field goal, and then from that, they'll actually say, okay, I think this is where, things might factor out. But 9, and now it's at 6.5, which is still a touchdown. Very interesting to watch. The Saints and Bucks is going to be the game of the week. Mark my words. Shameless plug.
Hold that thought against the Packers. I want to touch on that. But another topic that I promised to talk about, you said Ben Roethlisberger should, the Steelers should move on from Ben Roethlisberger. So to that, DeShaun Watson wants out of Houston. Where should he go?
Oh, man, this is tough. So I was watching a show earlier, and they were floating the possibility of DeShaun Watson joining the Miami Dolphins. Now, for those of you out there wondering, well, why would he go there, or why would he want to go there when they have a franchise quarterback? It's because they don't, okay? Ryan Fitzpatrick is what you would call a substitute teacher. He is great in spot starts. Like, he's like a relief pitcher who can start occasionally, but they're not good enough to be an actual starting pitcher, so you throw him in the bullpen. That's actually one of my better analogies. That's what Ryan Fitzpatrick is, okay? We know that. He might go out there and light it up, but eventually the wheels are going to come off of the train, and he's going to unravel. And when he unravels, his unraveling is like of epic or disastrous proportions. So with that being said, let's just face the facts, man. Tua is not it. He's not getting any taller. He's not overly athletic, doesn't have a huge arm. I hate his throwing motion. I'm naturally impartial or biased to left-handed quarterbacks because I don't like their throwing motion, and I don't feel like they can see things clearly from their blind side. So the Miami Dolphins are in scramble mode because it's like, damn, we got a good defense. We got a good head coach in Brian Flores. We've got a good foundation because we still have draft capital and assets, but we don't have a quarterback because Ryan Fitzpatrick is a career journeyman and backup, and on top of that, Tua is not who we thought he was. His intangibles, which I love, his leadership, his workability, whatever you call it, relatability, doesn't match his actual tangibles. So could DeShaun Watson work in Miami? It makes sense because Miami has pieces to give, right? They have pieces to give. I want to see DeShaun Watson on a contender. DeShaun Watson, did you know DeShaun Watson, since entering into this league, damn near has a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He's 106 touchdowns for his career to just 34 interceptions. A passer rating near 100. Like, the kid can play. He's had a disastrous offensive line. Prior to this season, no quarterback in the NFL over the last 3 years has been sacked more than DeShaun Watson. That is a problem. He needs to go somewhere where he not only has offensive line support, but where he can get with a play caller who's going to maximize his skill set, because the talent is there. The intangibles are there. Now, here are some options that have been floated out there. So I told you about Miami. Washington, which I don't think is actually in play. They don't deserve a quarterback the caliber of DeShaun Watson. While they might need one, their fan base does, and I live and work in DC. They don't deserve DeShaun Watson. Their fan base shouldn't be anywhere near a quarterback of his caliber, period, point blank. But the Washington football team, the Miami Dolphins, okay, the Jacksonville Jaguars need a quarterback. Hell, the Chicago Bears need a quarterback, okay? Let's call it what it is. The Chicago Bears need a quarterback, all right? You're looking at other situations. We don't know. Well, we kind of do know what the Eagles are going to do, because by firing Doug Peterson, you pretty much say that you're moving forward with Carson Wentz. Dak Prescott's future as a Dallas Cowboy is still uncertain. So there are a lot of teams in the league where DeShaun Watson's services could be used. Hell, could he be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Could he be the succession plan to Ben Roethlisberger? I don't know what the best fit is for him at this moment, but what I will say is this. He's not getting traded in division. So even though the Colts will be in the market for a quarterback and the Jaguars need one too, he's not going to those two teams. I could see him going to the NFC, where he's not going to do the Houston Texans any damage. unless they make it to a Super Bowl, which we all know the Houston Texans are making it to a Super Bowl.
A few things to that. Tua Tagovailoa, I'm not a fan of him. Biasly, I don't think Alabama quarterbacks just happen to be good NFL quarterbacks. That's a fact. That is not my opinion. I'm very biased against lefty quarterbacks. Their spiral's weird. It's harder to catch. I don't like the way it comes out of their hand. That's what I didn't love about Tua. With that being said, biasly, I wish DeShaun Watson would be back in a Jets uniform. And don't ever criticize me about being a Jets fan. It's called having hard emotion, which you said you cried on camera for 8 minutes and 30 seconds about when the Patriots lost to that Miami Miracle in 2018, I believe it was. So don't give me that. And you said I'm no longer supporting the Patriots anymore. And you said, quote unquote, I am done with the Patriots. So don't give me that. It was emotions running high, so stop it. With that being said, I do not forget Mike McCagnon for that because he passed up on DeShaun Watson and passed up on my favorite player, Patrick Mahomes. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I would love DeShaun Watson in a Jets uniform. Not going to happen. I like him in a few locations. The Indianapolis Colts, who need a quarterback. Philip Rivers is not going to win them a Super Bowl. His days are almost over. He has one more year left on his deal, and after that, Philip Rivers probably will retire, even though they're paying him, I believe, $25 million, if I got that right. Maybe I'm wrong. But with that being said, I like that option. I like the New Orleans Saints. If the Saints lose on Sunday, Drew Brees, I'm out. I'm done. He's 42 or 40. I believe he's 42 years old.
41.
41, okay. Father Time's undefeated. That's a guy where maybe he's got to go. And then plug in DeShaun Watson to that offense, who I believe is way more dynamic than Drew Brees, especially that he's not even in his prime yet. Would love that option. And the last one, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger is not a good quarterback, as I continuously say. The Tin Man in the pocket with no running game, that team needs to get better. The offensive line needs to get better. And I think that will open up the run game. That will make DeShaun Watson better. But that will make them more of a strong contending team. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers, the more you put the ball in Roethlisberger's hands, the more he's more likely to make mistakes, which is exactly what happened on Sunday. And at this late in his career, I think his best days are certainly behind him. His elbow injury, maybe that was bothering him. Maybe that's why he's been struggling. But DeShaun Watson with the Saints, the Steelers, or the Colts are in his best interest. And if you want to make the Dolphins argument, I will not argue that. I totally understand where you're coming from.
So the Colts, I don't know if they're as attractive. I don't know if you saw, but Anthony Costanzo, one of their offensive line, one of their key pieces on the offensive line, announced that he was retiring from the NFL. And if you remember, one of the criticisms of the Andrew Luck tenure in Indianapolis was that he was getting crushed. The man had a lacerated kidney because they couldn't protect him to save their lives. The Colts offensive line used to be one of their weaknesses, but they turned it into one of their strengths. With Costanzo announcing that he's retiring, I don't know if their offensive line is still going to be the same. They were really, really, really good this year. But you have to remember, it's harder to block for a quarterback that's mobile. One of the benefits of having someone who's a statue like back there, whether it's Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger, is that you don't have to worry about them running around or moving around too much, which forces you to run around and move around a lot. Now, it hinders you offensively because the defense can just send a bunch of cats at you without any threat of you actually escaping or you having any type of elusiveness. So I think if the going rate, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jamal Adams, his compensation was 2 first-round draft picks and a player, correct? So if that's the going rate for a safety who is not nearly as impactful as an elite quarterback or a franchise quarterback as DeShaun Watson has proven to be, I can only imagine what DeShaun Watson's going rate is going to be. I had a Washington football fan tell me this, and this is why I can't talk football with everyone. You're lucky you're able to do it because I respect what you have to say. But they told me they wouldn't trade Chase Young in any package for DeShaun Watson. And this is why you can't talk football or sports with everybody, because that is asinine. I don't care if it's Chase Young, okay? I don't care if it's Chase Old, whatever the case may be. You make any move and include any player that Houston asks for, because this is basically how it's going to go. If I'm on the phone with any general manager and it's like, you want DeShaun Watson? Let me see how bad you want DeShaun Watson. I'm always going to ask for more just to see if I can get more initially. So I'm going to try and gut you of all your resources, all your assets, just to see how bad you really want. They have an old saying, this might be before your time, that there's a baby and a fool born every minute. So while one team might look at it and say, the Houston Texans are out of their damn mind that they think I'm going to give all this up for DeShaun Watson, I guarantee you there is an NFL team who will give that much up for DeShaun Watson. And it's typically your New York Football Jets or your aforementioned New York Football Jets, because you don't root for them anymore. But with that being said, DeShaun Watson has proven to be elite. We need to see him in the right situation, because as much as we love DeShaun, Lamar Jackson is having a lot of success. And it's about the coaching that he's enjoying with John Harbaugh and that Ravens organization. We seen Patrick Mahomes have a bunch of success, and a lot of that is about coaching. All right. DeShaun Watson has had Bill O'Brien, who, despite people's criticisms of Bill O'Brien, was 52-48 in his career, which isn't bad. That's slightly above average, meaning he was over 500. But I will never forgive Bill O'Brien. I still don't even know how he got back on the plane. Maybe you can explain this to me when you talk. Bill O'Brien against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, the Kansas City Chiefs spotted them 24 points. And when I say spotted, I mean the Texans did a lot of things really well to get up 24-0 on the Kansas City Chiefs in their building. Bill O'Brien elected to go for it on 4th and 3, right? Excuse me, he elected to kick a field goal on 4th and 3, right? As opposed to going for the 4th down conversion and keeping the drive moving to see if he could get 7 points. Then on 4th and 7, instead of kicking the field goal, he elected to go for it on 4th and 7. Those two things, in combination with the fact that not only did they blow the 24-point lead, but they lost by 20 points. I don't know how he was allowed to get back on a plane that day. He had to have had tape of the owner in a compromising situation, because there is no way in hell that he should have been allowed on that plane. That is the head coach that Bill O'Brien was. That is the head coach that DeShaun Watson had in his career. So I need to see him in a situation where he is either paired with a brilliant play caller or somebody who is going to put him and his teammates in the right situations to win.
That's fair, but for time purposes, I got one more topic to talk about, and that is the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. I kept telling you, and I was dead accurate. I said, even though you got this right, I'll give you that, so I'm not coming at you. But Vegas knows things we don't know. I've always been a criticizer of Lamar Jackson, that his play style doesn't necessarily translate to the postseason, because I can't trust him to throw me back into games, which I still stand by that today, despite the Ravens actually winning that football game. But the only reason why I actually picked the Ravens is because I saw the spread. It was the Ravens were favored 3.5, and you look at that and be like, this looks too good to be true. I have to take the Titans, which the public was heavy on the Titans, and they got absolutely clobbered on it. Last year, if you take it back down memory lane, Derrick Henry ran all over them for 195 yards. The Ravens were at home with the league MVP, best record in the NFL. People thought the Ravens were going to the Super Bowl. And then what do you know? The Titans end up pulling that upset, and then the Titans beat them again this year in the regular season. So will you look at that and be like, why are the Titans the favorite? Why are the Ravens the favorite? And what do you know? Vegas did what they did best. They know things we don't know, and the Ravens pulled off that victory. But to you, I ask, did Lamar Jackson really prove that he got that monkey off his back, that he's that elite quarterback, he finally has a playoff win? Or was it really about the Ravens defense holding Derrick Henry, which in my case, if I had to vote for MVP, I would be giving it to Derrick Henry. So was it more about Lamar Jackson, or was it more about the Ravens defense?
Well, you can give the MVP vote to Derrick Henry all you want to. You would be wrong. He's not winning the award. Should he be considered for it? Absolutely. But that's why it's hard to give running backs the MVP award, because you can render them useless. You can render them non-existent in pivotal moments. As much as we say, oh, well, you can do the same thing to quarterbacks. No, you can't. I saw Bill Belichick take Patrick Mahomes out of a playoff game for an entire half. I'll fast forward you, or rewind you back to the 2018 AFC Championship game. Bill Belichick took Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill out of that game in the first half. It was 14-0. 14-0. Can anyone sitting out there at home or anyone watching this tell me what the final score in that game was? It was 38-31. That means Patrick Mahomes put up 31 points in the second half. To include at one point, I believe he put up like 20-something consecutive at one point. So I say all that to say it's hard to render a quarterback useless or non-existent for the entirety of a game. You might be able to do it for a drive. You might be able to do it for a quarter or a half. But for the whole game, it's really increasingly difficult to do that. And with that being said, the Titans defense weren't able to render Lamar Jackson non-existent. I think it's a 50-50 split. The Ravens defense was the story of the game, because even though they got down early, they didn't favor or cave like a cheap tent like they did in the regular season game this season or in the playoffs last year. But it's hard to argue that Lamar Jackson's impact, like he's what you would call a dynamic playmaker, all right? So Russell Wilson, for the first couple of years of Russell Wilson's career, people were hesitant to slap that elite quarterback tag on him. They just would refer to him as a playmaker who plays quarterback, right? When you think of quarterbacks, you think of people who can sling it all over the yard. So you got Tom Brady, you got Josh Allen, you got Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, the knock I have against him is not necessarily that he can't throw the football. I might not, because that's really just parsing words. Like, I don't like the way he delivers the football or his throwing motion, but I think he misses way too many what I would call give me throws. Those are the underneath intermediate throws. And as an elite quarterback, you have to be able to hit those because they're going to be there for you. Like, we're not playing in the NFL, which is overly physical, where you get to rough up or jam receivers all across the line of scrimmage and just throw people around. So if they're giving you, or they're playing soft coverage or vanilla coverage, as you like to call me, Mr. Vanilla, you got to be able to make those throws and hit those. And Lamar Jackson misses way too many of those for me. Now, does that mean he can't improve on that moving forward? No, that doesn't mean that he can't. It's just something that he needs to work on and be cognizant. But that Ravens defense, in conjunction with Lamar Jackson, is the reason that Baltimore won. They could have stopped Derrick Henry all they wanted to. But if Lamar doesn't make those pivotal runs to put them in position to score points, they would have still lost the game. Because, again, like I said, they were down early.
Sure, I could agree with that. I believe this is way more about the Ravens defense. Lamar Jackson was the best running back on the field. He ran all over that defense. He was special. But again, throwing the football, he didn't prove anything. I believe he had 179 yards with an interception and no touchdowns. He didn't throw the ball all that great. But the thing is exactly what I've referred to, that Ryan Tannehill is a product of Derrick Henry. That Titans offense goes as Derrick Henry goes, which that Titans defense is a disaster, which they didn't even play that bad. So the Ravens Cinderella story, if you want to even call that, ends this weekend. That's number one. Number two, the Tennessee Titans, when I always said that Derrick Henry is really a cheat code. Like, that's what Jonathan Taylor was at Wisconsin in college. I believe Derrick Henry is simply a cheat code to have on your roster. I believe teams know what the Titans are going to do. They know he's getting the ball, and they do nothing about it. They stack the box, they send extra rushers, and they can't do anything about it. And that opens up everything for Tannehill, whether it's the play action, helps receivers get open, help them create separation. So it's all about what Derrick Henry does. If someone told me with a straight face that Derrick Henry is going to rush for 40 yards, I would say there's a better chance he doesn't rush for 40 yards in one play than the entire game. That killed the entire Titans game plan, is exactly why they lost. The Ravens shutting down Derrick Henry opened up everything for the Ravens offense, even though they were going against a very bad defense. And it proved to you that Ryan Tannehill is not what people tried to make him to be. He's a mediocre quarterback at best. He has the luxury of playing with the best running back in the game, but that running back got shut down for the first time in a long time. The last time that I can remember, the last time I could remember Derrick Henry really getting shut down. So with that being said, the Ravens won this game is because they stopped the Titans' game plan. The Titans want to run the ball down your throat, and then it opens up everything for Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill didn't have a good game. If Tannehill could have proved to me that people were trying to tell me he's a top 10 quarterback, some are even pushing that he's a top 5 quarterback. A way you could have proved me wrong, yeah, that's a ridiculous take that people actually say that. I don't. Ryan Tannehill is a mediocre quarterback at best. But with Derrick Henry struggling and Ryan Tannehill threw the Titans to a victory, him having a 300-plus yard game with 3 or 4 touchdowns, then I would say, you know what? I was really proved wrong against a good defense in the Baltimore Ravens. But what I saw this weekend is exactly what I'm talking about. Ryan Tannehill is a product of Derrick Henry. Yes, a quarterback is not always the most valuable player on your team. I believe Nick Chubb is the most valuable player in the Browns offense for the Cleveland Browns. I believe Derrick Henry is the most valuable player for the Tennessee Titans offense, more valuable than their quarterbacks on their respective teams. With that being said, that's why my take on Ryan Tannehill has proven to be 100% accurate. The floor is yours for one more take.
You're lucky we only got 40 seconds left. I just want to say this. I'm really confident that the Baltimore Ravens are going to beat the Buffalo Bills. So I disagree with you that their season ends this week, but we can talk about that at another time.
I don't believe that in the slightest bit. I love what the Bills have. Again, I'm a big believer in momentum. I believe when you're hot, which the Bills, I believe of one of their last 9, they won their last 9 of their last 10 games, and their one loss was the DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Johnson 2.0 triple coverage Hail Mary 2.0. So with that being said, I love the Buffalo Bills right now. Wait, what was that?
The Ravens have won 6 straight, so I mean, it is what it is, but we'll see.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up today's show. Marcus, always a pleasure to talk sports with you, my brother. If you want to shout out your podcast one last time, where can we find you?
So I'm a contributing writer for the Los Angeles Lakers, all things LeBron for fansided.com. You can head over to that website to check out all of my articles. I also have a podcast called The Mark My Word Show. That's The Mark My Word Show. It's on all major streaming platforms, YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on, what else am I on? I'm on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. That's where you can find it. Again, the name of that is the Mark Morwood Show. Brandon, I appreciate you for having me on. It's been a pleasure to chop it up and talk sports with you.
Thanks for calling on, Marcus. Always a pleasure.